Brihad Miranga ki jai. Samaveta Bhaktivinoda ki jai. Janita Gaur Premanandi. Hari 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 Bo. O glorious to assembled devotees. O glorious to assembled devotees. O glorious assembled devotees. O glorious Lord Sri Sri Guru and Guranga. O glorious Sri Prabhupada. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Hare Krishna. We are reading today from Canto 3, Chapter 11, verse 41. Okay. Dashodaradikir Yatra. Dashodaradikir Yatra. Pravishta Paramanuvat. Pravishta Paramanuvat. Lakshyate Antargataschanye. Lakshyate Antargataschanye. Kotisho hi Andarashaya. Kotishya Andarashaya. Dashoradikir Yatra. Pravishta Paramanuvat. Lakshyate Antargataschanye. Kotisho hi Andarashaya. Dashodaradikir Yatra. Shta Paramanuvat. Lakshate Antargatir Janye. Tushaya Nandashaya. Shadikir Yatra. Shta Paramanuvat. Lakshate Antargataschanye. Shohyanandashaya. Yakshotaradike Yatra. Prishta Paramanuvad. Gatas Kaschanye. Koti Shohyanandarashaya. Dashoradike Yatra. Pravishta Paramanuvat. Lakshate Antargataschanye. Koti Shohyandarashaya. Word for word. Dasha Uttara Adike. With 10 times greater thickness. Yatraha, in which. Pravishta, entered. Parama anuvad, like atoms. Lakshyate, it, the massive universes. Antagataha, come together. Cha, and. Anye, in the other. Kotisha, clustered. He, for. Andarashayaha, huge combination of universes. Translation. The layers of elements covering the universes are each 10 times thicker than the one before, and all the universes clustered together appear like atoms in a huge combination. Purport by His Divine Grace Srila Prabhupada. The coverings of the universes are also constituted of the elements of earth, water, fire, air, and ether, and each is 10 times thicker than the one before. The first covering of the universe is earth, and it is 10 times thicker than the universe itself. If the universe is 4 billion miles in size, then the size of the earthly covering of the universe is 4 billion times 10. The covering of water is 10 times greater than the earthly covering. The covering of fire is 10 times greater than the watery covering. The covering of air is 10 times greater than that of the fire. The covering of ether is 10 times still greater than that of air, and so on. The universe within the coverings of matter appear to be like atom in comparison to the coverings, and the number of universes is unknown even to those who can estimate the coverings of the universes. Om Gyantimarandasya Gyananjana Shalakaya Chaksur Unmilitham Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadada Shiva Sari Gaura Bhaktavinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. Hare Krishna. I just wanted to read the prior verse just so I can just begin. I was quite amazed. I read it a while ago, and just reading again just brings back memories for me. So yes, the phenomenal material world is expanded to a diameter of 4 billion miles as a combination of 8 material elements transform into 16 further categories within and without. The layers of elements covering the universes are each 10 times thicker than the one before, and all the universes clustered together appear like atoms in a huge combination. Hare Krishna. So this is it's not there's a saying that the cosmology of the universe is very bewildering, even to devotees. And I remember like a seminar given by Tamal Krishnamaj, and he was speaking about the universe, and he was saying how Prabhupada was describing the universe. He wanted the Vedic planetarium designed, and he was explaining aspects of it. And then Tamal Krishnamaj said something like, I'm just paraphrasing because I can't remember the word for word. He said, oh, that doesn't make sense because of this. And then Prabhupada interrupted him and said, you are simply prejudiced. In other words, because you've been conditioned, habituated, or even brainwashed to think in a certain way, in a narrow way, you're not willing to understand the universe is much greater than what you think it is, and it's beyond your understanding. I've heard that that the 5th canto has even caused some disciples of Srila Prabhupada to leave the movement because they just couldn't believe it. It was just inconceivable. Like we hear people like it's explained that the material world is on this plane, and there are other planetary systems within our planetary system, because there's 14 planetary systems. And there's some people like the way it's described, we don't perceive that from pictures in space. They have the Hubble telescope. It doesn't show that. So and it just it's such a source of confusion, bewilderment. So how do and even Lord Brahma, even Shukadev Goswami explains that this is very difficult information to understand. You can't understand it perfectly. So don't expect to understand it with your material equipment, elements, or senses. You can't. It's not possible. It's like I was thinking, it's like an ant. An ant is tiny creature, and it lives within a certain circumstance. And for it, that piece of land it lives on, which is probably like a park or somebody's house, that's the universe. It has no understanding or the senses to perceive there are other countries. There are there's even a planet. It doesn't have that sense perception. So we're like that ant. We're trying to understand the universe. So in preparing for, so I remember remember reading about 12 years ago. I read Brihad Bhagavatamrita, and it is a story of Gopakumar. Gopakumar is the protagonist who receives this mantra from his guru. And if I can remember correctly, it was a Gopal mantra. And the guru said, just chant it. And by that, all your desires will be fulfilled, spiritual desires. And it's explained that he wasn't spiritually mature. He didn't really understand. He didn't have a philosophical understanding. He was very, you could say, naive and innocent. But he had faith in this mantra. He didn't really understand what the truth was, but he just chanted it. And by the result of this mantra, he was able to go from Vrindavan. He went to Jagannath Puri. He became the king there. Then from there, he went to Lord Indra's planet. He took the position of Indra. He met the four Kumaras. Just by the power of this mantra, he kept rising and rising through the planetary systems until he came to Lord Brahma's planet. And in each of those planets, and in Lord Brahma's planet, in going through these planetary systems, he experienced so much, you could say, opulence, material pleasure. He saw it, but he still was, and he also met the Lord in Lord Brahma's planet. The predominating deity, the Mahapurush, is a form of Lord Krishna. So, and then because he kept chanting this mantra, because he had this desire, there was something that was compelling him to go further. He ended up going through the sun planet, and then he reached to the first covering of the universe that we've just read about. And in these coverings are called avarana, and it's basically the the subtle elements of earth, of what we just read. Prabhupada explains earth, water, fire, ether, and they're in a very, very subtle state. So what we experience in the material is in a gross state, but these are the elements of the universe in concentric circles around the universe. So it's explained that as Gopakumar, as he was going up the planetary systems, he could notice people's bodies were different. Like it's explained that our bodies are gross, but if you go towards the hellish planets, going towards Patalo, the bodies become much more grosser. People are so much inclined to sense gratification. Whereas and when you go upper, the body starts to change texture, it changes. So in the moon planet, you have like your clothes are made from moon rays, for example. And in the sun planet, your body is fiery. So when he was going, he came. It's explained. When he was reaching each of these coverings, his body was changing to suit the element. Because if he would have gone with a body that wasn't suitable, his body would have been destroyed. Because it's such a rich concentration of the subtle elements that you have to have the body in that element, otherwise you can't survive. So anyway, what was interesting, I found, because I just thought when I read about that before, my understanding was that it was just energy. There was nothing there. It was just energy. But actually, there's a planetary system in there. There's Lord Matsya is in the he's in the water element. He's there. He has a kingdom, and its opulence is greater than what's in the material world. And and in each of them, there's different personalities. There's in the other, there's Surya in the fire. There's Narayan. There's different expansions. There's different who are in charge of that element. And the first covering he came to was the earth, the one made from earth, and he saw Varahadev there, because this was the first covering he went through. And Varahadev was being worshipped by his wife Bhumi Devi, who's Mother Nature, because Bhumi Devi is the wife of Varahadev, and she's worshipping him. And Gopakumar saw opulence greater than what he saw in Lord Brahma's plan, and he was amazed. And Bhumi Devi, because she's a Vaishnavi, she started to serve him after she stopped serving her husband. And she was saying, please stay here, we'll look after you. But still, despite the amazing opulence, the amazing service he was receiving, he was like, no, I want to go. And like that, he went through the different elements until he came to see Matsya. Now, in the Brihad Bhagavatamrita, explains that the last covering is the water element, and it's explained that it is water is closest to spirit out of all the elements. That's what it explains. In the purport, Prabhupada explains the other way around. So I'm not sure why that is, and it's also explaining that because that element is very close, water is very close in a subtle sense to spirit. Lord Matsya exhibits his godliness in full in a very substantial way. But anyway, so going through each of these elements, he always found the Lord, and the Lord's wife was compelling him to stay. And this is within the material universe, where it's amazing material pleasure, where you're experiencing something greater than what you experience in the gross material universe. He's going through the subtle elements, and then he's compelled. He's chanting his mantra. He's like, no, I want something higher. This is not what I want. He's compelled, and he just keeps going until he comes to the source of these elements. I'm just going to read the verse from Brihad Bhagavatamrita. He says, as before, it means he's chanting his mantra, he's going through. He says, as before, I crossed over each of these coverings and finally came to the covering of primordial nature, composed of the most subtle form of ignorance. It was dark blue and attractive to the eyes and mind. Now, this is the source of the coverings of all these subtle elements. Now, it's also explained that Prabhupada explains in the purport that the first covering is 10 times bigger than the material universe, and we know the material universe, Prabhupada explains in Bhagavatam, is 4 billion miles in diameter. We can't even scientists won't even believe that. The scientists believe it's infinite, but it's 4 billion miles in diameter. Diameter. So that means, do you just get a spaceship and you go through these different, go to these different planets? No, you can't, because they're in a different dimension. You can't go there. Like if you study a bit of science, it explains about there's these radiation belts that are covering the Earth. And, in the 60s and 50s, they tried to send a spaceship through there, and they put like live animals like chimpanzees, and basically the ship was destroyed. It couldn't get through there. So how did they go to the moon? Because you have to go through these radiation belts, and they can't. So how they went through, we don't know. Anyway, so anyway, he got to this primordial source of all the subtle elements, and subtle, and then he met Bhumi Devi, another form of Bhumi Devi. And Arjuna describes this in the Bhagavatam, where he was taken there by Krishna. So when Arjuna was about to commit suicide because he couldn't protect the Brahmana's children, so Krishna said, don't worry, I know who's responsible for this. So he takes Arjuna on this chariot, and they go through the planetary systems, and they come to this place. And Arjuna describes this place as a very dark place. He was terrified. He said he could feel there was texture to it. He could feel it. So and then through that he went through that, and then he saw Mahavishnu, and went through the Brahma Jyoti, then Maheshtam, then he went to the Vaikuntha planets, then he went to Ayodhya, then he went to Dwarka, then he had to come back to earth again because he had to perfect his sadhana, become because he wasn't perfect in his bhakti. Then he went back to Krishna again. But so anyway, this is not so much an analysis of his journey in terms of he went to different planetary systems. I mean, that's interesting in itself, and that wasn't my focus. But when I was preparing, I was thinking, should I make a PowerPoint presentation because it's really interesting? But what really stood out for me is that about how Gopakumar's determination to keep progressing through the different planetary systems, and until he finally goes back to Krishna, he finally goes back to Goloka Vrindavan. He experienced material because it's explained that with Krishna consciousness we have a direct process. It's like an express path that we go straight to Krishna. We don't have to go to Lord Brahma's planet. We don't have to go to the subtle elements. We don't have to go to Maheshtam Vaikuntha. We go straight to Krishna's planet. But Gopakumar went through the long process, the indirect process. And it just shows that when you're going through these places, you can easily get caught up in a material pleasure, because once your karma runs out in the high planning systems, you have to come back down again. But Gopakumar was different. He didn't get caught up in that because he always had a desire to find out who is my Lord, who is this person, because he didn't remember he was spiritually immature. He wanted to know until he goes back to Krishna. So so his determination was amazing. And he made this strong vow, this strong sankalpa, and that he's going to chant this mantra no matter what. And as he was chanting, he was becoming more and more pure. Now remember, he had no anarthas, he had no offenses in his heart. He was pure, but he just wasn't spiritually trained in Siddhanta and understanding of Krishna consciousness. But by the mercy of his guru, he was able to go forward. Now, there's a very nice verse in the Bhagavad Gita, that kind of explains about Gopakumar's mood, how he rejected sense gratification, material pleasure, and kept going, and how he developed this strong, resolute purpose. So the verse is Bhogeshwarya prasaktanam daya partha chetasam vyayasayatmika buddhi samadho na vidhiyate. In the minds of those who are too attached to sense enjoyment and material opulence, and who are bewildered by such things, the resolute determination of devotional service to the Supreme Lord does not take place. So very key, very important. So if you are attached to sense enjoyment, material opulence, and you're bewildered by such things, the resolute purpose, that strong focus of practicing devotional service it won't take place. What type of determination is this? It's like, you think of Dhruva Maharaj. His father rejected him because of his stepmother, and he was determined to get the love of his father, determined to get the kingdom. Narada Muni, so his mother guided him, said you can find him in the forest. He went there, and Narada Muni guided him to chant a mantra. He chanted. It was so powerful that it disturbed all the demigods. So Lord Narayana had to come down. But that determination, So when it's like so I remember there's a quote by Prabhupada. He talks about Vrindavan is not going to Loy Bazaar and doing shopping, because Loy Bazaar is like this shop. It's called the shops, clothes shops, jewelry shop, digital shop, and devotees go there a lot. I mean, I go there myself. So but it's like you can end up spending your whole day there, or even days there, instead of going to the temples, associating with the sadhus. Prabhupada says Vrindavan is not about Loy Bazaar. It's about going to the Dham, associating with the Vaishnavas, doing service and surrendering to Krishna. So even it's explained that even in the holy place like Vrindavan Maya, there's this covering of Maya which covers the Dham to protect the Dham from materialistic people who don't have pure motives. You can go there and you go to Vrindavan, you think, oh, it's not very opulent. It's not like New York City. It's not like London, and then you get disturbed and then you want to leave. But this is to protect the Dham from such people who don't have strong purpose, who are going with bad intentions, who are not determined. Krishna, it's like we have this, like Sometimes people think, well, I just need to just, I don't need to make much effort. I just, just go with the flow in Krishna consciousness. It doesn't work like that. Like there's this famous advert I remember many years ago. And this basically, there was this guy who was like a, normal, mundane, mediocre guy. He wasn't very successful in his life, especially with the opposite sex. And, he puts on his deodorant and he starts walking on the street. It's like a Lynx advert, Lynx deodorant. And then these angels, these beautiful angels, start falling from the ground. They lose their wings and they're just attracted to the smell, and they're following. He's starting to run away from them. And the idea is that he didn't have to work on himself, like in terms of his character, his work, his looks. He just puts on a deodorant, and all these beautiful angels like will fall in love with him, and be his consorts. But and we kind of had this like, this is what spiritual life is like. It's not like that. You've got to work hard. You've got to be determined. Like when you're trying, like waking up early in the morning, it's hard waking up early in the morning. It's hard to concentrate fully for 1 rand, what to speak of 16 rand. It's hard to go out, distribute Srila Prabhupada's books. It's hard to say no to Maya. We've got to be determined. We've got to be resolute in purpose. And like this, Srila Prabhupada had this mood when he came to America. I had this pastime from Chandramauli Maharaj. I'm just going to kind of paraphrase it because I heard it about 15 years ago. And when Prabhupada came to New York City, he gave his books to this shop. And this shop was like kind of the shop that it's like an antique shop. They sell different things. And Prabhupada would go there every day. He'd meet the person and say, "Have you sold my books?" And it wasn't that he needed money, but he just wanted to go to say, "Has the book? Have you sold my books?" And this is before Prabhupada had disciples here. He had followers. And this person who was a shop owner, he was surprised. Why do you keep coming back every day? It doesn't. These books don't sell. If it sells, it sells. If it doesn't, it doesn't. Prabhupada came every day for 7 days. And on the 7th day, before Prabhupada came, it sold. And the man said, yes, it sold. And he gave Prabhupada some money for the books. But can you imagine that focus? And like when Prabhupada was in India, he was so determined to preach Krishna consciousness, to follow the order of his spiritual master. Like it's explained when in Delhi he got gored by a goat or bull, I can't remember. And he fainted. He had heat stroke. He fainted in the heat. Like, India's like 40 degrees right now. It's hard to conceive of such weather. But Prabhupada was determined, and when he came to New York City, it's explained that he went through so much austerity, but he was determined, I'm going to follow the order of my spiritual master, which is to preach Krishna consciousness. How do you develop that? That comes by, it comes by a very rejecting material life for what it is, I remember this, I remember the story of the sparrow. The sparrow, she had a nest which was somehow fell into the ocean, and the ocean took the sparrow's the nests of eggs away. So the sparrow was very distraught, and she pleaded with the ocean, "Please give back my children." And the ocean the ocean didn't listen, So then she said, "I'm going to dry you." She started with her beak. She started scooping up water and scooping it up. So everyone who saw it was laughing at the sparrow. Said, "You're not going to be able to do this. You look at you and look at the ocean. You're never going to be able to do it. Not even millions of lifetimes." So then, but she was determined. She said, "No, I want my nest back. It's got my children, because the eggs, her children were in the nest." So gradually, by word of mouth, it got back to Garuda, and Garuda is this humongous bird. It's like, if we think of Garuda as a small bird, but it wasn't. Garuda is massive, and he came. He took pity. He was impressed, and he took pity on the sparrow, and he said to the ocean, "If you don't return the nest, I'm going to dry you out." And the ocean got scared and brought back the nest and gave it back to the sparrow. But such determination the sparrow had against all odds. We hear of people in mundane situations, like, they have an accident, they have to learn how to walk again, or they have to learn how to do basic things again, but they fight against all the odds. They're so determined, I'm going to do this no matter what. And that's for a material thing. I remember seeing this guy, I'm reading about this guy. He did this thing, it's called like a ultra marathon. Anyway, it's like a marathon where you run 100 miles in 24 hours. and you can't really, you can take stops here and there, but it completely breaks in the body. And it's a real matter, it's a real test of willpower, mental strength, what you believe in your purpose. And this is for a mature thing. This is not even spiritual. Like, so so if our desire, if we have this strong hope for eternal enjoyment in the material world, it will cause a lack of determination. It will take us away from the true path. We'll get bewildered. It's like, like it's like someone's going to somewhere to eat food, and along the way he sees, I don't know, like half-eaten food on the floor, and it's dirty. And you're thinking, well, I'm hungry, let me just eat it. And then you just get absorbed in that. That's what we're doing. We're not going to the real thing, to the pure thing. So this resolute purpose is so strong, and it's very important we cultivate it, we keep this desire. So when we have like we hear so many times in scripture that about personalities who were on the path of spirituality and they lost their way. Like we hear of Ajamil. He was a Brahmana, he was a Vedic Brahmana, very paka. What contaminated him? He just saw this. It was a woman embracing a man, and that completely destroyed his consciousness. And that woman was a society, low society person. She was a prostitute, and he fell in love with that person, and she bore him kids, and just, and he knows this, but he knows the philosophy, but even he was bewildered. And the Bhagavatam warns us many times. It's happened to great personalities. There's one sage, I forgot the name, he was underwater. I think it was Vishwamitra, I'm not sure. He was underwater, he was meditating, and he saw 2 fishes copulating. Just that disturbed his meditation. And like one of the most dangerous things of mature hankering is that it gives rise to many doubts, which can never be purified at all. So, for instance, like for example, like when we joined the temple, like I remember when I joined the ashram, I did it a few years ago. No, wasn't there for long, but I remember I was thinking, I could get a job in a good bank and earn good money if I wasn't here, but I'm here. Like I wasn't doubting me being in the temple, but I was thinking, I'm missing out on something. But it's in economics, they call it opportunity cost. If you do something, you miss out on something else. This is like a mundane doubt, which becomes so strong, so rich, and it started to affect my purpose. Like, like when you're like I remember when I was doing the marathon in England. In England, it's really cold in England, and it rains a lot as well, so it's not the best combination. And I remember like I was like, because you had to wake up early, and when you're on the streets from like 8-9 o'clock to 8 o'clock, it's a real toll in the body. And I was thinking, I could be at home in bed, or at home in my comfort zone, reading Bhagavatam, listen to a nice lecture, having nice hot milk. I was thinking like this. I was thinking, what am I doing here? But these are doubts. It's taking me away from my purpose. My purpose here is to distribute Srila Prabhupada's books. So how do we, so in the Bhagavatam, we don't, when we have these doubts, even if we get these material things, what we forget is that Krishna will come and take it away from us. Krishna says in the Bhagavatam in Canto 4, he says, so one devotee says, I can't remember the personality, sorry, it says, my dear Lord, all living entities within this material world are mad after planning for things, and they are always busy with a desire to do this or that. This is due to uncontrollable greed. The greed for material enjoyment is always existing in the living entity, but your lordship is always alert, and in due course of time, you strike him just as a snake seizes a mouse and very easily swallows him. So time will destroy everything. Time will take everything away from you. This shloka illustrates the action of kala. Time in Sanskrit means kala, and it reduces. So if we have enjoyment for these things, It's going to reduce our it's going to reduce our determination to do progress devotional service. And actually, if you think about material desire and its resultant happiness, it can actually fall into three categories. The first category is that, you want something, you really want something, and you don't achieve it. It leads to misery. The second category is you really want something, you achieve it, but it doesn't live up to your expectation. We've all had that, right? And the third one is you aspire for something, you achieve it, it lives up to your expectation, but then you lose it. But the ultimate goal of all three is misery. Like color takes everything away. So the material world is temporary and it's full of suffering, and it leads to, and it's just mundane. Everything's mundane here. It's not real happiness. It won't lead to pure bliss. It will just lead to misery. So, if you think about it, if you really want something, think about it. I'll either get something, it won't meet my expectation, I'm in misery, or I'll get something and it'll meet my expectation, it'll be taken away from me, or I get something, I desire something, I get it, it doesn't live up to my expectation. And we've all had that. When the novelty wears off, it's like, you still feel that hankering. So, and nectar devotion should, it's written in verse 3 that one cannot execute the process of bhakti yoga successfully. One can execute the process of bhakti yoga successfully with full-hearted enthusiasm, perseverance, and determination by following the prescribed duties in the association of devotees and by engaging in activities of goodness. So, like by associating with the devotees, by reading scripture, coming to the temple, worshipping the deity, this strengthens our resolve to be determined on our journey to go back to Godhead. And there's a very beautiful verse in the Bhagavatam which further describes this. It says, Nashta prayesh abaddareshu nityam bhagavat sevaya bhagavati uttama shloke bhaktir bhavati nashtaki. By regular attendance in classes on the Bhagavatam and by rendering of service to the pure devotees, all that is troublesome to the heart is almost completely destroyed. And loving service unto the personality of Godhead, who is praised with transcendental songs, is established as an irrevocable fact. So if we want to be strong, if we want to have strong resolute purpose, be determined on this path, we must associate with devotees. We must, chant Hare Krishna, read the Bhagavatam, read scriptures, surrender to the spiritual master, worship the deity. And we should really, be part of this, take on this mood of the Acharya, which is Srila Prabhupada, which is preaching. I'll just finish with this point. And this point someone told me that really helped me appreciate and kind of guide me in my Krishna consciousness was that for a devotee to be successful in his spiritual life, he needs three things, right? He needs strong sadhana, he needs good association. And the third one, he needs a sense of the mission. What does that mean? That means that he has to identify with Srila Prabhupada's mood, right? We are followers of Srila Prabhupada, we follow his mood. And what is that mood? Is to become Krishna conscious and to share Krishna consciousness, to preach Krishna consciousness. Because when we identify with that missionary mood, that brings us closer to Srila Prabhupada. And as a result, it brings us closer to Lord, his spiritual master, Bhaktivinoda Thakur, going up to Lord Chaitanya, who wanted the whole universe delivered. And Srila Prabhupada has this mood. So we can't just be, come to temple, do our service and not have this. We should have this sense of mission. We want to spread Krishna consciousness. So if we see someone, we should feel sad that this person is not devotee. And when we're spreading Krishna consciousness, we're associating directly with Srila Prabhupada and following his instructions. And then we will develop resolute purpose. So anyway, I'll finish here. I'm going over a bit. So thank you very much. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai. Jai Sai Gaur Premanandi. Hari Hari Bol. Oh, yes. Anyone would like to ask a question? Sir? Would anyone like to say anything or share anything? Maybe they can. You guys know more than me, so Prabhuji. Yeah. So good association, strong sadhana, and a sense of the mission of Krishna consciousness. Becoming missionaries. Because yes. Would you like to say anything? Because you preached in Europe for many years, Prabhuji.
Thank you for the class. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
I was just contemplating if every covering of the universe it's that 10 times bigger than the previous one.
Yes.
That means that actually if the universe is that big,
Yeah.
we are somewhere really in the center.
Yeah.
Basically, the living space in the universe is extremely small, and within this space, actually, the planetary systems, they take even smaller space because it is said they are in the stem of the lotus, isn't it?
Yes.
So it looks like actually the universe is huge, but actually extremely small part of the universe is habituated with living entities. It looks like that. Can you comment on this?
So was you asking? So I thought you was making a comment. What's the question?
Yeah, it looks like that. It's not exactly a question, but can you comment on this? It looks like that very small part of the universe is filled with living entities. Everything else is just coverings and material elements.
No, but that's why I'm saying this. In our universe is one of the smallest universes, right? There's 14 planetary systems. In each system, there are many planets. I think there's 7 planets. I'm not sure. There's hundreds. Each of them has living entities, like beings. Now they don't have the same body as us. You know, they look a little bit different. They may be taller. They may whatever. They may. Look, if you think about this planet, right now in this room, there's probably millions of living bioorganisms. We can't see them, right? Okay. You know, when we're walking through them, we're killing them unknowingly. So everything in the universe has living beings. It's not that it's empty. Like even in the coverings of the universe, there is a kingdom. You know, I explained that Varahadev in the first covering, he's been worshipped by Bhumi Devi. He has a kingdom there. He has people that live there. They're his devotees. But it's still part of the material universe. But it's subtle. It's a subtle place. So the body is different. The texture is different. Mm-hmm. But the living entities are everywhere. You know, you can't count the living entities. You know, you can't even count the universes that are coming out of the body of Mahavishnu. You know, they're saying they're coming out of his pores, and they're unlimited. And each planetary system, each universe lasts 120 trillion years, right? And within them, there's, you know, I think about Paramatma is in the heart of everything. He's in the heart of not just the jiva, of all the jivas. He pervades everything. So there is living entities are everywhere. Is that okay?
I got it. Thank you.
Would anyone like to mention anything about how they keep strong in their determination in Krishna consciousness? Yeah. Come to Jimmy's got some nice realizations.
Actually, I've been thinking about this for a little bit about how to keep good determination in Krishna consciousness. So I was thinking, actually, I feel like maybe I was spacing out during the class because Tosirubu, he was just right here. He just asked me that question. Mine just kind of blinked out. But I was thinking, like you're saying, right? I just wanted to make sure I understood what you're saying, that if we have strong sadhana, we have good association, we keep the mood of the mission, then we can have strong determination.
Yes.
I also know before you're also saying, you're also mentioning, I think was it a Gita quote, a quote from the Bhagavad Gita, talking about one can be successful in devotional service through, what was it again? Perseverance, determination, enthusiasm.
Yes.
And then what were the other ones? What are the other qualities required for success in devotional service?
So what was the question again?
There's I know you mentioned a quote. I remember the first 3 parts. It was talking about the enthusiasm, determination, perseverance.
Oh, from nectar. Are you talking about nectar of instruction?
Oh, nectar of instruction. Yes.
Yeah, nectar of instruction. Yeah. So it says. Let me just read the verse. I forgot the verse. It says one can execute the process of bhakti yoga successfully with full-hearted enthusiasm, perseverance, and determination, by following the prescribed duties in the association of devotees and by engaging completely in the activities of goodness.
I see. Yeah, that's true. I think they have been thinking that sometimes it seems super duper impossible to right? To say to really like get rid of like all these anarthas, these tendencies in our heart for sense gratification, for enjoyment, proprietorship, control. I think definitely the biggest problem is too much halwa. Seems like a very big halwa gulab schools. It's a very big problem. It's a very big problem for me, right? I think and I think that these sometimes it seems difficult to keep a determination, but I think lately what I've been thinking about is really associating with the Prabhus or just showing up for Bhagavatam class. I know there's a really awesome point that Padmanayana Prabhu made in the Bhakti Shashi class for Nectar of Instruction. He was talking about how just by following the basics of like Krishna consciousness, following the 4 regulative principles, chanting 16 rounds, and only taking Krishna Prasad, and then associating well with the devotees, not committing any big gross offenses, then automatically day by day we'll accumulate transcendental knowledge in our heart and we'll advance in Krishna consciousness.
It's true. Very true. Very nice. Thank you so much for sharing that. I was just thinking, one of my most blissful, because I grew up in the UK, one of my most blissful times in Krishna consciousness was when I would go on Harinam. I'd go on Harinam a lot with Tribhuvnath Prabhu, his disciple Srila Prabhupada. Some of you may know him, and he is like, like sometimes London's a bit like New York, but maybe a bit not so congested as New York. But he would go through the rain, and he was so fearless. And he would do Harinam, and we'd have to go through all these drunk people, some fuggish youths, and he was like so determined. I remember I was so attracted to him. I think this person really has this strong faith that I want to have strong faith like this, and I just wanted to be near him. I didn't really get to know him, unfortunately, but it was so inspiring to be near him. So just going on Harinam with such a person. So when you're with such devotees, what they have rubs off on you. When you think about them, it rubs off on you, and it really affects it really improves your spirituality. It makes you more determined. Like karmis they're so determined to make money. They're so determined to lose weight, so determined to do so many mundane things. They'll go through, crazy things. Like, there's a thing called spelunking. They'll go through a cave. And basically, they get stuck and have to, go through like a worm. And they're determined. So, what's devotional? And our process is just very simple. It's chanting, dancing, and feasting. We don't even need to be great philosophers or great brahmanas. We just need to do these 3 things. Anyway, I'll finish here. Thank you very much. Srila Prabhupada ki jai, Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai, Jai Nitai Gaur Premanandi, Hari Hari Bol.
Oh, this case, Dharmaraja Prabhu ki jai.